Hi there and welcome to Central Texas Gardener. I'm Tom Spencer. Is your garden going to the dogs? Well, today we've got special guests, Devin, Angie, and Kaiser, to give you a few tips on how to garden with dogs. But since we couldn't put a microphone on them, professional dog trainer Janice Pattons speaks for them. So sit, stay with us, and on tour, let's begin our program by visiting Link Davidson, who found a new way to garden.
The next time you leave something out for bulky trash, it's just possible that Link Davidson will turn it into garden art. From the roadside, old barns, friends moving sales, or downright dumpster diving, Link extended his limited budget by reinventing the wheel of garden design.
I've found that there are things that catch my attention and there are things that don't, and it's kind of on the fly. It's hard to say. Sometimes something will tell me what it wants to be and I'll take it. Sometimes something will tell me I'm not going to work for you and I leave it.
Link developed a discerning eye for trash when he started gardening at the house he rented. After he bought it in 2007, he spent even more time building up slopes into beds and creating a certified wildlife habitat.
When I moved in 2001, there was nothing in this yard except weeds, and the weeds were probably a good 2.5 feet tall. I like to call it the accidental yard because I never intended to landscape it, but here we are.
He accidentally got into scavenges too, like the granite blocks his former landlord rescued when Hancock Center's old walkways were removed. Link began to see potential art in yesterday's leftovers.
Think openly, think widely, and you'll find sometimes that using items not intended for the purpose in mind are actually less expensive. If someone tells you this is lath, it's not necessarily lath. It can be a screen for a fence, for instance.
His outlook can disguise eyesores too, like a drainage pipe, now hidden under a grassy berm. It took a lot of work to get it home, but he couldn't pass up an abandoned I-beam to finish off the new space. Some things are sentimental, like the bathtub from his dad's childhood home. Others were lucky finds when Link answered the door to opportunity's knock. In back, he turned a problematic slope into a 2-story room by excavating soil and securing it with truckloads of rock from his former landlord's ranch. The upper story also gave him room for a cabana, started with a discarded bed frame. Of course, he appointed it with scavenges. As he uncovered the Caliche Ridge, Link's design radar went up. He promoted moss to give it new credentials.
It was something I can't take full credit for. Nature built this nice little area. I just had to find it.
On the new first floor, even discarded marbles add to his decor, where he and partner Doug Carpenter often entertain. But Link has learned how to be discriminating with plants and accents.
For a while, I went a little nuts and just about anything and everything found its way onto my driveway. And next thing I knew, I had a carport that wasn't looking all too nice, and I doubt the neighbors enjoyed looking at it either. So I had to start figuring out a better system. For instance, the sinks I have around the yard, I don't choose just any sink. It has to have a certain look to it, a standalone look. I've had friends and acquaintances want to give me things, and I don't know sometimes that people understand that there actually is an aesthetic to dumpster diving.
Even at home, he finds a way to use leftovers, like for his Easter Island sculpture.
It's just a lot more fun to try to make these things rather than rely on the corporate-made versions. I think it's more interesting to look at, it's more fun to play with, and again, it's typically cheaper. So there's a payoff on so many levels.
Well, I always like to see somebody who's having fun in the garden like that, so thanks for sharing your garden with us. And right now we're going to have some fun on the set. We are joined by Janice Pattons, who's a dog trainer and helps people control their dogs in garden settings, and a whole tribe of beautiful animals that you've brought along with you, Janice. This is the first time in 20 years we've had canine guests, so welcome to Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're most welcome, and you have what cute guys you've brought along. And our topic today is helping folks who love dogs and love gardens put those two things together. But before we dive in and do that, you have to introduce us to your tribe, because it's a pretty special looking lot.
Okay. Over here up front, this is Kaiser. Kaiser is a Bernese Mountain Dog, and he's about a year and a half old.
Wow.
And
he's a big puppy.
He is about 110 pounds right now.
Yeah, and beautiful animal.
Thank you. And over here is Devin. Devin is a perhaps Chinese crested mix. We don't really quite know.
Now, Devin is the little guy sitting up right now.
Right. And both of these dogs are from Town Lake Animal Control. And
awesome. So they're
both
rescue
adopted.
dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome.
And Angie, who's taking a bit of a nap right now, she's probably about 9, and she was 4 when we adopted her.
Okay. Beautiful little guys. Angie is the most adorable little thing. I don't know if people can. Oh, look at that. Absolutely adorable. So when we talk about gardening and dogs, the big concerns people have are, you know, they'll trample everything down or they'll dig everything up. Now, how do you control the dogs in the garden setting? How do you help people do that?
I think it's really good to find things that the dogs like to do in the garden and that they can do with you in the garden.
Okay.
And so if you have a really active dog, having a place that they can romp and play that you've set aside for them is really good.
Okay. Fetch is a very popular thing. So.
Yeah, yeah. If you have a dog that has a propensity to dig, and a lot of terriers do, teaching them other things that they can do with their paws, some paw games are always a really good way to go.
So it's not just that they like to dig, it's the use of the paws themselves.
Exactly.
Ah. And I understand you wanted to demonstrate a little bit of game that would, is it with Devin?
This is going to be with Angie.
Okay.
See if we can wake her up. Angie, good girl. All right, Angie, good girl. Angie, can you shake? Good girl, that's really nice. Can you shake? Good girl. How about paws up? Angie, paws up. Oh, that's so good. Very nice. All right, back in place. You come back over here. He says, I really want to get in your lap. Angie, over here. Good girl place. Very nice.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, very good.
Very attentive. And you know, it's all in the time you spend with them, isn't it, really, when it comes to training?
It really is. Good training increases your communication. And so if you're doing positive, reward-based training, you're actually having more fun with your dog. And your dog really does like to do things with you. And so if you can figure out a game plan to do some team activities together, they really can have a really good time with you outside as well.
So the little activities of just putting their paws up on things and shaking and that sort of thing really relieves that tension or the need to do something with their paws?
Well, they're going to be doing something anyway. So just the amount of time that you take to say, you know, how about this? And especially if you train with treats and they get treats for giving you their paw, is it really that much more fun to go dig in the dirt?
Ah, you know? Yeah, right.
But if you have a dog that likes to dig, then you may want to teach them a command like leave it. And leave it is really easy to teach. You can do that with treats as well. Okay. And it just means really seriously not there.
Okay. What are some other strategies for dealing with dogs who are diggers? Is there something physical that you can do with them? Meaning like actually manipulating their paws?
Well, I like to keep their nails pretty short. If you give your dog really great tools, they're going to want to go out and play with their tools. And so if you look at Kaiser's nails, you see how really pretty they are. They're really nice and short, and it just gives them less of a reason to go explore your garden that way.
Okay, so keep the nails short and keep them active. Now, a little while ago, you were saying we were talking about activities you can do with the dogs before we got on the set, and you talked about turning compost with the dogs.
Yeah, you can. If you have a dog that really likes to dig, you can have a dog help you turn your compost. And
reward them for that activity.
Yeah, exactly. You can also come up with a digging pit where you really get an area that's very partitioned for the dog to go dig, and you can hide treats and toys in there, and they can dig. If you want to share, you can make it one of those rakeable Zen gardens.
That's kind of a cool idea too. I like that very much. One of the things, you know, is also leaving spaces for them. You referenced play spaces, like for playing fetch or something like that. But it's important when you garden and you have animals that are going to be in the garden to give them little shady retreats too, right?
Right. I kind of try to think of what my dog's wish list might be.
Okay.
Like, you know, a place to lie in the shade under her favorite tree, a place to lie in the sun. Maybe if my dog's really into watching squirrels, then a good high squirrel observation tree.
When you say high, it's high for the squirrels. So
Right, high for the squirrels, not high for the dogs.
Right.
I like for them to, you know, I don't want for them to be bored. And so leaving a dog outside all day to see what I come back to in my new garden design might not be like the best garden design plan for me.
That's right. And I think that's the biggest thing, really. And I think where people really get into problems is where they just use the backyard as the dog room and then wonder why they can't garden, right?
Exactly.
So there are lots of good strategies here for, and just in terms of helping them, you know, stay out of trouble. Now, one of the things that we wanted to talk about too is a lot of people think about problems. They think about digging. They also think about when the dogs use the backyard as a bathroom.
Yeah.
And there's some problems associated with that, but not necessarily have to be, right?
Yes. If your dog goes to the bathroom and you water your yard within 8 hours of when your dog has gone to the bathroom, you can completely avoid urine burns in the yard, because urine is just high in nitrogen, and that's really what we're looking for.
Somebody's a guard dog here on the set, which is great. That's all right. They're right now is very attuned to the camera activity back there, which is good. That's a good dog. That's okay. So, but the urine burning thing is an issue, but only if you let it be, right?
Only if you let it be.
So water it in within 8 hours is your recommendation.
Yes.
And because again, the materials, the urea and that sort of thing. It's funny when you hear them describe fertilizer, they'll say urea, and you think, well, that can't be because that burns, right?
Right.
But if you water it in, it actually acts as a fertilizer in the garden.
Right. And if that's not possible for you, you can also have a designated potty area that maybe is kind of out of the way.
Well, well defining the territory is another thing that is very good dog. You have to tell me, Devin, this is a cute little thing about Devin's backstory. Not only was she a pound rescue, Town Lake Pound Rescue, she actually was dumped on Town Lake, right?
Well, yeah, Devin was at the hike and bike trails, running out, grabbing the joggers, and then running back into the bushes. And so her early life, she wasn't too crazy about.
So she's protective, in other words.
Yeah.
Well, that is a very good dog. And you know, when you're working with people, how long does it usually take to turn? I think that this is turning the person around as much as turning the dogs around, right? How long does it take to really work with a family so that they can work with the dogs the way that you do?
Generally, with most dogs and with most families, they need a couple of lessons if they're kind of, you know, to get a few things smoothed out. When you need a puppy, or when you have a puppy, though, you really want to start doing a lot of training from the very beginning. And so I have a new puppy. She's 8 months old, and she takes more work than my other 7 dogs combined.
Yeah, well, puppies, they're children, right?
Right.
So they're learning a lot. But one of the things, you hear you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but one of your dogs here was 4 when you got her, right?
Right. Angie was 4 when I got her. She liked to dig. She liked to run away.
Mm-hmm.
And now she likes to she hangs out,
Just being a good dog.
Yeah.
That's what we want. Now, one of the things that you do in the garden is, dogs do like to help.
Yes.
And so fetching is something that they like to do in the garden.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you've devised for your dogs, right?
Well, yeah, they can actually help you find things that you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, all right? Devin. Good girl. Good. Hey, Devin, look. Can you get that for me? Devin, where is it? Devin loves your lawn. Where is it?
There you go.
Did you get it? Oh, good girl.
Good girl.
Thank you. That was very nice. She also is really great at bringing you refreshments if you're a little behind on your water intake. Can you get the bottle? Where is it, Devin? Oh, that's it. Hey, Devin, bring it here. Devin.
It's all this new stuff, Mom.
She loves the grass.
There you go.
You got
all
it. That's
right.
really good. Thank you. Very nice.
Just don't give her one of the 2-liter bottles.
Right, yeah.
I think that would be a little bit too much for her. She is a sweetheart. Now, again, for people who believe they can't put the two together, you work with families. Now, how can people find you?
Probably the best way is our dog site, our website, which is arfdogtraining.com.
ARF.
ARFdogtraining.com.
Okay, and that's a great way to get the whole thing started. And so that if people who have the heart to rescue a beautiful little critter like this, or want to bring in a new member of the family and introduce them to the garden, they can do all of that. Janice, thank you so much for being our guest on Central Texas Gardener. Thanks to the crew here. And coming up next, it's Daphne.
Hi, and welcome to Down to Earth. Our question this week is on cabbage loopers. And these are little caterpillars that you might be seeing right now if you have vegetables in your yard that are in the blue leaf vegetable family. Those cabbages, kales, broccoli if you have those. And those can quickly decimate your plants if you don't keep on top of them. These are, as we said, a caterpillar, and so they are larvae of a moth. And so they're what we like to call, in fancy horticultural terms, lepidopteran larvae. And those are very easy to treat with a really nice little product that's organic, and it's very safe, and it's called BT, big T, little t, and that stands again for another fancy horticultural way to say it, for Bacillus thuringiensis. And this is a natural product that when the cabbage loopers or any other caterpillar eat it, that causes them to, they can't digest it, so they actually end up kind of exploding. What you might want to look for on these is what we call frass, and that is the droppings. They'll be black and on your plant, so look for those and treat for them very quickly so that you can keep your plants healthy and alive. Our plant this week is actually a vegetable. We started talking about using herbs and vegetables in your landscape, and so this week we'd like to feature an herb, and that's cilantro. It's the fall, and it's the perfect time to plant cilantro seeds. This particular little herb likes to molt very quickly as soon as the temperatures get warm, and so the fall is the best time to plant them. They do great through the winter, they aren't affected by our cold, and they just love the short days and the cooler temperatures, so it's a great time to plant them. They don't get very large either, 12 to 24 inches tall, and they spread just a little bit, so you might plant them 12 to 24 inches apart. But you can also plant them very close together, like you might baby lettuces or mesclun seeds, and then come back and harvest them by kind of trimming them like a little hedge and using them to make your salsas. If you do plant them a little further apart, you want to make sure that you have successive plantings so that you can harvest them at different times of year, and you have not all your cilantro coming on at once, but it's a little spaced out so it's easier for you to use. That's a good idea to do with any vegetable that you plant. In your garden this week, it's time to divide those spring flowering perennials that you might have. Echinacea or Indian blanket or even yarrow, if you have some yarrow in your yard. It's time to divide those if they've outgrown their space. If they haven't outgrown their space, you can just leave them alone for the rest of the winter. Also, if you have any veggies in your yard, we talked about your cabbage loopers, but go out there and look for any other insects that you might have. You might have some squash bugs, and before those get very active, if you get out and you get on top of them, you might be able to keep them under control before they eat all of your vegetables. It's also time to move your tropical plants inside if you've had them outdoors for the summer, so they don't get frostbitten or frozen back. To send us a question of the week or to suggest a plant, please visit klru.org/CTG.
Thanks, Daphne. Now let's check in with John Dromgoole for Backyard Basics.
Hello, gardening friends. Welcome to Backyard Basics. You know, I always come and do little things with compost or mixed potting soil or show you how to propagate something. The other day, somebody asked me, why don't you ever show the plants that you like? And I said, well, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll come down and show some of my favorite plants. And so I've collected a lot of these guys over the years. These right here are the ones I first started with. They're all in the bromeliad family, so you can see some of the characteristics. This is one I really like, this whole selection right here. They're called cryptanthus. And crypt means, it's a Latin word for hidden, and anthus means, it's the Greek word anthus for flower. So these have hidden flowers. Not a very significant flower in there, little white things, but it's their foliage that makes them so attractive, and that's what I like about them. I've got a glove on because with these guys, they'll bite you when you're working on them. So little glove like this. These are small, so what it does is it makes my hands stay like this all the time, which makes it easy to grab the pots, but uncomfortable after a while. So these cryptanthus, look at the color on these guys. Here's a single one right here. See this guy? This is one by himself. Now this one's been propagated from this guy right here. This is a clump of them. They're easy to remove also. I like the clump. I brought all of these that are in different clumps. They can be shown as individuals like that one, but they're all in here. Like many of the bromeliads, the mother dies. When this plant right here finally reaches maturity, it will produce a whole lot of babies. This pot had one of those, and now these are the babies that are coming up everywhere around it. Look at those leaves. They're just so beautiful. And so it makes a nice full pot. But at a certain point, you'll begin to see yellowing leaves as the mother plant dies away. And so besides some nice little gloves, this is the only other tool I use, these little scissors, and I'll go in there and take out some of these brown leaves as they begin to appear, and you don't have to take it apart as the mother begins to go away. So, and you know, when you leave them on there, some of these extend out of the pot. They make a nice little hanging basket. So these little pups are everywhere on here. It's really a neat plant for cascading over one of the benches in the greenhouse or hanging the plant. So these are really neat. These little cryptanthus are colorful and nice. Here's another one that I left in a clump. Look at this beauty right here. You know, I buy them at the different garden shows that are around town. Sometimes there'll be plants on sale. I'll find them and grab one of them. Sometimes they don't even have a name. Actually, frequently they don't, and I try to identify it a little bit later on. This one right here is called Mystic, and once again, I bought it at one of the shows. You'll find these at the Cactus and Succulent Society shows also. So I always try to get in there early and go searching around to see if I can find myself a little cryptanthus. You could also join the Bromeliad Society, and you'll see them over there and learn more about them. So the other day, I was looking through the Yucca-Do catalog, and there was some nice dyckias. This is related to the cryptanthus, but discovered by someone else, and so these dyckias are really nice also. Unlike the cryptanthus, these don't bloom in the center. They bloom from the side, and the mother plant doesn't necessarily die off, and it creates a big old long spike on there with beautiful, sometimes pink, orange, yellow flowers. The butterflies and the hummingbirds like them, and but look at the character of this guy, really nice. When they ship them into you, they come in a nice plastic bag to keep them moist. Here's another one, a little bit different. This one's called a hectia. And so, and look at the nice clump. I could take these apart and pot them up or do something else with them. Here's another dyckia right here. Look at, these are little crosses. Many of the growers like to cross their own. They'll take them and hybridize them, and you'll get different characteristics. And that's what I like about them, the subtle differences in them. Look at this color right here. This is a nice red one, nice, almost maroon really, really beautiful. And then there are these types over here. with that nice silvery foliage. This is a beauty, and look at the star shape of it. They're earth stars. The cryptanthus are called earth stars, and what they need is a soil that drains well but holds moisture at the same time. One of the interesting things about the dyckias is they're very cold hardy. They can stay outside. When you're rushing around to put your plants in before that first freeze, you don't have to worry about these guys. And you can grow them just like the cactus out in your garden, and they're really beautiful that way. So these are some of the plants that I really like and have a bunch of in my greenhouse. If you're ever at some of the shows and sometimes at a nursery, look for cryptanthus or dyckias and you'll like them. They're very easy to grow. For Backyard Basics, I'm John Dromgoole. I'll see you next time.
Get more tips, online video, and our weekly blog at klru.org/ctg. Next week, meet the perennials that laugh at drought. Until then, I'll see you in the garden. Visit klru.org/ctg to learn more about today's program, upcoming events, and to sign up for our electronic newsletter. Check out John's how-to tips and visit Trish's Corner for ideas inside and out. Get growing at klru.org/ctg.